Welcome to episode 1 of this series on implementing ISO 14001 using the logic of the 2026 edition. We are not going to start with a clause-by-clause explanation. We are going to start where a real implementation should start, with a real company, a real business model, real pressures, and real environmental consequences. The company in our case study is BlueRiver Beverages. So everything we do in the next episodes will grow from this case. We'll use it to discuss scope, context, environmental conditions, interested parties, environmental aspects, compliance obligations, risks and opportunities, objectives, operational control, emergencies, and later, even performance evaluation and improvement. One of the most common mistakes in EMS implementation is to start too early with documentation. So people open a template, write a policy, create a register, copy a legal list, and only afterward ask a very basic question. What kind of business are we actually managing? That sequence is backwards. The standard exists to help an organization manage its environmental responsibilities in a structured way. So it's not the organization's job to fit itself into a pre-made binder. So in this series, we begin with the business. What does the company do? How does it make money? What makes it vulnerable? What environmental conditions matter around it? Where can it control? Where can it only influence? That is the logic we'll follow here. Before we enter the case, let me frame the direction of the 2026 edition. The foundation of ISO 14001 remains the same. This is not a revolution, but the updated edition makes some things more explicit. First, it gives clearer emphasis to environmental conditions. The organization is affected by them and also affects them. Second, it reinforces the link between environmental management and business outcomes, strategic direction, and risk-based thinking. Third, it strengthens practical expectations around implementation, life cycle thinking, and the way organizations interpret their context and boundaries. So this series is not built on the idea that 2026 is a completely different standard. It is built on the idea that 2026 pushes organizations toward a more mature and more reality-based interpretation of the EMS. Now, let's meet BlueRiver Beverages. BlueRiver Beverages is a mid-sized company with one main production site. It produces ready-to-drink beverages and concentrated syrups for private label and branded customers. Its main market is regional supermarket chains plus food service distributors. Demand is seasonal. So in the hotter months, production intensity rises, cleaning frequency rises, storage pressure rises, and logistics become more complex. The plant includes mixing, blending, filling, packing, storage, dispatch, utilities, and wastewater pre-treatment. Transport is outsourced. During peak periods, overflow warehousing is also outsourced. Now, at first glance, this may look like a simple manufacturing business, but as we will see, it is exactly the kind of company where the EMS scope decisions become interesting. An EMS should never be designed as if the business strategy did not exist. Let's repeat this. An EMS should never be designed as if the business strategy did not exist. BlueRiver wins by being reliable, responsive, and cost competitive. Retail customers want consistent product quality, dependable supply, and quick reaction during seasonal peaks. That means production stability matters, cleaning matters, utilities matter, contractor performance matters, warehousing matters, transport reliability matters. And this is already an important lesson. Environmental management is not floating above the business. It lives inside the business. So if the company depends heavily on water, if it discharges wastewater, if it relies on packaging suppliers, if it uses contractors, then those facts are not side notes. They shape the EMS. Now, BlueRiver is not implementing an EMS for just one reason. It is happening because several pressures are now converging. Some retail customers are asking more structured environmental information. The company is growing, and growth is exposing weak points that used to stay hidden. Regulatory oversight is becoming more demanding, especially where wastewater and reporting are concerned. And leadership is increasingly aware that water is not just an input. It is a dependency and a potential constraint. So, this is not a story of certification for decoration. This is a story of a company realizing that environmental management now belongs inside operational and business management. Here, we introduce a key idea that will become more important in the next episode. An EMS does not exist in empty space. BlueRiver operates in a region where water availability is becoming less predictable. Periods of drought are more relevant than they used to be. Extreme rainfall can also create disruption. Wastewater issues are not abstract because receiving waters and local controls matter. Local interested parties may become more sensitive to visible environmental incidents. So this is exactly the kind of thinking that 2026 direction strengthens or emphasizes. So environmental conditions are not background scenery. They shape risk, operational choices, resilience, and credibility. So at this point, many practitioners would jump directly into an aspects and impacts register. I would not yet. Because if you determine aspects before understanding the business, the local environmental conditions, the scope choices, and the operational dependencies, you are likely to produce a register that is technically neat, but, well, strategically weak. So the first lesson of this series is simple. Do not start by listing environmental aspects. Start by understanding the organization in motion. So in this series, we need one environmental topic to follow all the way from scope to operational control. I am choosing water. Why? Why water? Well, because water is both an operational necessity and an environmental issue. It connects directly to local environmental conditions. It has obvious implications for efficiency, wastewater, compliance, resilience, and cost. And it also gives us a very good way to discuss life cycle thinking, because water-related impacts and dependencies are not limited to what happens at the point of withdrawal or discharge. And this is also a very practical choice because ISO already provides topic-specific guidance on applying ISO 14001 to water-related environmental aspects and conditions. Now, let's look at the Blue River as a chain, not as a building, okay? So, suppliers provide ingredients, packaging, chemicals, and services. Inbound logistics brings those materials in. Production transforms them. Utilities and cleaning support the process. Wastewater pretreatment handles what leaves the process in liquid form. Warehousing stores finished goods. Outbound logistics distribute them, and customers put pressure back on the company through specifications, expectations, and commercial requirements. And don't forget the consumers. So this matters because an EMS built only around departmental boxes will mix the real flow of environmental consequence. Now we arrive at the edge of the next episode. So once we understand the company, we can no longer pretend that scope is just a sentence copied from another certificate. So does the EMS stop at the factory gate? What do we do with outsourced warehousing during peak season? What about transport providers? What about packaging suppliers whose environmental performance affects the life cycle of the product? And when the standard talks about the organization, about what the organization can control or influence, how far does that go in practice? Those are not drafting questions. Those are management questions. And in episode 2, that is exactly where we will go. Now, let me close with the main idea of episode 1. A credible EMS starts with a credible picture of the organization, not with generic templates, not with random registers, not with premature documentation. So in our case, BlueRiver Beverages is already showing us the themes that will matter most: business pressure, water dependency, outsourced activities, local environmental conditions, and the challenge of defining boundaries that are both credible and manageable. That is the foundation. So in episode 2, we'll take this case and ask the next real question. What should the scope of the EMS actually be?